It appears that customers are frustrated by the brands, mostly luxury brands, in terms of how they treat them, how they price their items for them. And Perspop created or wrote an article entitled something to the effect of Luxury's Self-Inflicted Decline. Self-inflicted decline of luxury. The end of luxury. Everybody's talking about it now. Finally. It only took me talking about it like 10 years before the rest of the world got there. How brands are frustrating customers. Here are a couple of points that we're going to go through together and read together. And let's see if we agree or disagree. Now, thumb up the video, subscribe to my channel, and everything I say in this video is for entertainment purposes only, not rooted in truths or facts. Everything's a legend, just my opinion. So, creative director turnover creates instability. That's point one. I agree. We've had this issue in the past, but never have we had it so quickly as now. In the times we're living in right now, and as I'm filming this video, it's 2025, mid-year, end of June. Sometimes I have the feeling that basically brands switch artistic directors from season to season at this point, or to save some money, they get rid of an artistic director and then they use their internal design team for a couple of seasons. It's cheaper, and then they rehire somebody as an artistic director later. But there are really, really quick shifts in terms of who is coordinating or bringing together the style and the language of a brand and its collection and its DNA. So point one, creative director turnover creates instability. I completely agree with this. Constant changes at brands like Chanel, Bottega Veneta, Loewe, Dior, and Celine create design uncertainty. Buyers hesitate to invest in items when the creative direction may soon shift. This fuels fatigue and undermines long-term loyalty. I agree. I completely agree. Point two, artificial scarcity and poor product access. Yeah, that's also a really good point. A lot of brands play these games. And also a lot of brands, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. When I was working with a lot of these brands, sometimes they really miscalculate how much of a success a certain product is going to be. Because they have to plan their collections. They have to start designing a collection a year or two ahead of time. Then they have to show the collection 6 months before it hits stores. Sometimes these collections, certain products can't be manufactured in huge quantities if the materials that they want to use or the shapes are not possible to get produced within the 6-month time frame that is given to the factories that are supposed to produce the items. And also sometimes during Fashion Week in the showrooms, certain items just don't get ordered because the shops just say, this is an ugly piece. We don't want it. So the brand gets in 300 pieces ordered in total, which is usually minimum for like medium-sized to bigger brands. Like 300 is like the minimum cutoff number. Like if you order less than 300, they're going to probably drop an item completely. But I digress. But what happens is sometimes an item is just not popular. On the runway, people didn't like how it looked. The buyers of the shops didn't really care for it. So just a handful of shops orders a certain item. Then what happens is the sample gets worn by some super famous influential person on social media or actor / actress, musician, what have you, and the thing goes viral worldwide after the cutoff date for production begin has passed. So the brand put in, let's say, 300 items produced, 300 copies produced of a certain item. The factory started producing, so you can't change the numbers after it goes into production, after raw materials have been ordered. And then, after all of those numbers have been shut, production is underway, you can't change the numbers anymore. Then a famous person wears said item as a sample and everybody falls in love with it, and all of a sudden that item becomes a viral sensation. But the problem is there's not enough of it to go around. That happens more often than you think, guys. And, and then people are super quick to scream, oh, this is artificial. You're keeping it artificially low. And blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sometimes brands do those little tricks as well. But many times what happens is the brand just didn't have a clue that the item would become such a huge viral sensation. And then they're just like there with their heads exploding, thinking to themselves, oh my God, what a missed opportunity. We're losing so much money. Because by the time they adjust the production numbers, which is in the next cycle for the factories, by the time the factories can reorder the raw materials and the brands can pay the factories to produce 100 times more of said item. Like sometimes an entire year passes before they can up their numbers. And by that time, that item that 1 year ago was a viral sensation, nobody wants it anymore 1 year later. And then, oops, the brand's now ordered after stock and they just sit on it because then nobody wants it anymore. Because trends nowadays live and die a quick life and an even quicker death. So this is something that you guys have to consider when you think about certain trends and this artificial scarcity. In some cases, it's really just miscalculations. In other cases, usually when it comes to very iconic items that are not bound to trends, but when items become part of the history of fashion, of a tradition of a brand, and those are kept at low numbers, then we can start talking about artificial scarcity. But for the trending stuff, usually it's just miscalculation in terms of what's going to be popular or not. So for artificial scarcity and poor product access, under point is Hermes, they say, and others enforce extreme exclusivity. Even loyal clients can't get basic items. Here I disagree. I know some people think that, the Birkins are kept artificially scarce. Dumas said, like, no, they don't even have a marketing team at Hermes. Okay, he said that in the 60-minute interview. So it's not like brand marketing planned it. He just says it just takes a lot of time to produce stuff in good quality. Too many people want the stuff, and we don't want to reduce the quality of our items. So just because 1 million people want it now doesn't mean we're just going to open up another 50 factories to meet demand. We want the leather to be of a certain quality. It has to be the top-notch quality that it is. It has to be produced in a certain time frame. It has to have a certain quality. You can't push that. You can't shorten the time it needs to make one of these bags just for the sake of meeting demand. So Hermes has become extremely popular with these special bags, but I wouldn't say that they're keeping them artificially in lower numbers. I just think way too many people want them. And good for Hermes for saying, like, no, we're not going to trash our items just because 1 million Oompa Loompas want it. Hold your horses. Wait in line. Just saying. Scarcity now applies to belts, watch straps, and jewelry, not just bags. Customers resent the spend more to maybe qualify model. Again, this does not apply to Hermes in every country. In Europe, it doesn't work that way. The whole quota bag, you got to spend a certain amount of money in order to be offered a bag. Like I said, I got mine in Europe. No pre-spend was required. It was just about waiting, and then you get it. Neglecting core and older customers. This is point 3. This is a really good point because I have seen this happening over and over and over again with luxury brands in particular. They're really nice to you at the beginning when you start spending there because they have acquired a new customer. For them, it's a great positive thing of growth for their company. And then if you stick around with them as a customer for 1 or 2 or 3 years, then they start neglecting you because they're like, okay, well, we've already won you over as a customer. We don't have to pamper you anymore. So we can kind of shit on you and try to acquire new customers. Now, America is really good with their customer service. If you want to leave as a customer from a telephone company or something, they're going to try to do everything to keep you there. They're like, hey, we can lower your rate. You can get a month free, this or that. In Europe, when you want to leave because they've made the conditions worse for you, for one of these companies, even for banks. When I left one of my banks, you know what they told, after like 20 years of being with the bank, they're like, oh, you're closing your account with us? I'm like, yeah, there were reasons because they kept upping their price, whatever. They looked me straight in the eye. You think after 20 years, they would say, is there anything we can do to make you stay with us? Because you've been a loyal customer, client of ours for so many decades? You think they said something like that? No. You know what they said to me instead? That bimbo looked me straight in the eye and said, oh, well, you're going to miss us. And I closed my account with them and I never looked back. Can you believe? So there's a big difference between how brands treat customers in Europe as opposed to America. America is way more consumer oriented. You know, they're gonna step up their game a little bit more to keep you as a customer, while Europe plays a totally different game. And most of these luxury brands that people really want to buy are sitting their elitist little asses in Europe, and they have the European attitude of like, we don't need you. And this is a big problem. So customers that have been customers of a brand for a while, they might get a little bit mistreated. So this is neglecting core older customers. Brands are targeting Gen Z Alpha while ignoring boomers and Gen X, unless you're a new customer. These older demographics hold most of the current luxury spending power. The intergenerational wealth transfer makes this oversight even more short-sighted. Okay, they're talking more about age. I'm also talking about the length of time you've been a customer. So that's something that I would add to this article that they didn't think of. Point 4, over-reliance on influencers and hype. I've been asking myself this for a while now, like, when are we finally going to stop it with these stupid influencers? Like, they are vile to look at. It's just, I can't. When is influencer culture finally going to end? Brands prioritize social media fame over customer history. Loyal clients feel dismissed and underappreciated. Influencer hype isn't building lasting brand equity. I completely agree with this. There was this one scene. I was at a Chanel beauty boutique. This is many years ago. Again, it was in Europe. And I was there to buy a Les Exclusives bottle of perfume. Not Comet, because a couple of years ago, Comet didn't exist yet. It was actually Le Lion de Chanel. And there was an influencer there who got invited to pick up, I think they got like $2,500 or euro worth of money to spend by the brand to get whatever they wanted. And they were like, they didn't care about Chanel. There I was ready to drop my $300-400, whatever it cost back then, a bottle of this, to buy mine. And I'm waiting while the sales associate is dealing with this Oompa Loompa who's like, yeah, I don't know what I want. And the sales associate is like, oh, would you like one of our Les Exclusive perfumes? They're amazing. They're special. She's like, yeah, I don't really use Chanel perfumes. Like, what are these? She's like, well, these are the exclusive ones that we have only in some space. She's like, oh, really? Yeah, I don't like, yeah, okay. She's gonna get a bottle for free if she doesn't care. She had the audacity to say, let me call my friend. She's on the phone with her friend, like, hey, I'm here with these like Chanel perfumes. Like, is there anything you want? Like, I could get you one because I just have to take a photo of it and then like I can give it to you. Like, is there something you like? And the friend is like, I don't know, which ones? And she's like, there's Boy, La Pausa. And the phone's like, I don't know any of them. Do they have like, do they have Coco Mademoiselle? And I'm like, they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, can I just please pay my $300-something for this bottle that this bimbo is going to get for free and doesn't even care for the brand, nor does she care for the product of the brand, but you're just shoving it up her nose like, please take it, take it. At least have the decency to do these, gifting suites, not while paying customers are in store at the same time. It is such a terrible, terrible visual. So yes, over-reliance on hype and influencers, I completely agree. Point 5, customer fatigue from hype cycles. Very much agree on this one as well, especially have noticed this with Louis Vuitton since the pandemic, because like they used to have their classic pieces that you could always find. I always loved to buy just the classic pieces, not really the fashion pieces. But then something shifted because a lot of people during the pandemic started buying a lot. So they started churning out new collections every couple of weeks. And I'm like, girl, that's way too fast. Like, I don't want to see a new bag collection from Louis Vuitton every 2 or 3 weeks. Like, it's too much. Chanel started amping their collections as well. Chanel came up to like, what, 10 collections a year? Girl, that's like H&M at this point. Way too much. Constant design churn and trend chasing create burnout. Instead of aspiration, customers feel overwhelmed and disinterested. I completely agree with this. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts down below about this point in particular. It's a really good point. And subscribe, thumb up the video. Next point, point 6, out-of-touch pricing versus perceived value. Looking at you, Chanel. This is typical for Chanel. They have, in my humble opinion only, outpriced themselves completely out of the ballpark. And everything I say in this video is for entertainment purposes only, not rooted in truths or facts. Everything's alleged and just my opinion. So I say allegedly. But for me, they've outpriced themselves. Prices continue to rise without comparable improvements in quality or innovation. I agree. Customers notice, especially when craftsmanship fails to justify cost, and luxury inflation now sparks skepticism, not status. I completely agree with this. It's no longer like in the past somebody would tell you it's a status thing to have an Hermes bag, a Louis Vuitton bag, a Chanel bag, but now it's more like skepticism. Point 7, brand dilution through oversaturation. Too many SKUs and collabs flood the market. Prestige erodes as luxury becomes too common and too copyable. The special feels mass market. I completely agree with this. So many brands rely way too much on collaborations with other artists, with other brands, you know, the crossover collaborations as well. Louis Vuitton with Supreme was an interesting example. Balenciaga with Gap, or gosh, there's so many of them now. I'm like brain fart. I don't know. Well, the latest one is going to be Muji or Uniqlo. No, Uniqlo with Labubu or with Pop Mart. So anyway. Mixed messages on pricing is point 8. Brands raise prices dramatically, then backtrack on some items. We have seen this in particular in recent years as certain brands have begun to outprice themselves out of the market and have then secretly started reducing their price tags. By this, I don't mean sales. By this, I'd rather mean price decreases, which is the opposite of price increases. So just overnight, certain price, like a bag was $2,000, the next day it's $1,800 without a sales price added to it. That's just the new price. And they try to keep it hush-hush because obviously they don't want the customer that just 2 days prior bought that same bag for $2,000 to hear that the bag is now $1,800. Could you imagine if you were that customer that just the day before the price went down, you bought it at the $2,000 price mark, and then like you feel scammed out of $200? Wouldn't you? I would feel scammed. Quiet adjustments and light versions confuse buyers. Price inconsistencies hurt trust in brand strategy. I completely agree with this. And then the conclusion says here, the luxury downturn is not just economic, it's strategic failure. By ignoring their loyal base, chasing hype, and devaluing meaning, luxury brands are alienating the very people who built their empires. And I would add one more thing to this list that the article doesn't mention, and that is also chasing wherever the money is on a socioeconomical, cultural, political level. Many brands are guilty of this, and it really tarnishes the reputation, in my humble opinion. Like, when a certain country is doing really well economically, all of these brands shift their style to match what they think is the cultural style of that country or that region. And many luxury brands are so guilty of this. And then kind of it looks like cultural appropriation in a way, but then also you see how these brands sell out for the sake of money. So they're going to adapt their tailoring, they're going to adapt their style, they're going to adapt by telling their... It's all an illusion, by the way. Artistic directors don't exist anymore nowadays. They used to in the past, but nowadays, no. Because now the artistic director is told by the marketing team and by the bosses of the company, hey, adjust your production and your design to meet the aesthetics and the cultural needs of this particular part of the world or country, because that's where the money is coming from at the moment. So, in other words, if you need to make all of a sudden stuff look very catered to India because India is now on the rise economically, all of your collections are going to look like they were designed in India. But just a couple of years prior, they all looked like they were designed in China. And just a couple of years prior to that, they looked like they were designed in the Middle East. And just a couple of years prior to that, when Russia was doing strong, everything looked like a babushka. So it's like that readiness to sell out for the sake of money. But you are in the same turn, in the same moment, or on the same token, sacrificing the heritage of the brand for the sake of the almighty dollar. That's where you lose me as a customer, because I see what you're doing. I see the watering down of your heritage. I see that you are desperate for the money. So you're not taking risks. You're not taking any jumps into the void to continue being creative, to continue the innovation and the spirit of your brand, but instead you sell out for a quick buck. Well, that's when you lose me as a client. So let me know if you have any thoughts about these points, these 8, 9 points, and would you add anything more to this list or not? I think it's a really interesting conversation to be had. I mean, we've been having this conversation already for years, but it's always good to put stuff on point, succinctly make these little lists of points. Let me know your thoughts down below. Subscribe, thumb up the video. Let's get to 100K subbies. Never give up on love. Bye.